Hi everybody, Ricky from Connerty Meadows Farm. So today we are trying to get the in-ground garden done. I did a bunch of the raised beds yesterday. The first thing that we do when we are getting our garden prepared is to hook up to our tiller. Then we make sure that all the pieces are in working order and that there is nothing caught in the tines. We're due for a thunderstorm, and I always love to get the garden in just before a good thunder shower comes. It's really good to give the seeds a good soak and just get us a good kickstart to our growing season. So as you can see behind me, we've got the tractor going, tilling up the in-ground. We've put piles of compost in here through the winter and last fall, and we'll be adding a little more of our soil as well. Thomas is just tilling the ground under. You can see he's being very careful of our strawberries that are already in. They're all in bloom, so hopefully strawberries soon. So he's done the garden this way, and then he'll turn around and he'll plow this way. And as you can see, the soil looks really good. We've been putting rabbit poop on it. We put the ashes from the maple syrup making on it, all the stuff that the garden likes to have. And it'll be really good. Time to plant. Very exciting. So at the end of tilling, we are left with like this pretty big divot in here. So we have to go ahead with the rakes and push it all back. And look at this. This stuff is beautiful. We have to put everything back in, as AC is demonstrating there. Small price to pay though. She likes to help in the garden, that one. We're just gonna go ahead and scrape everything back and get it all cleaned up and ready to go for planting. What you see me doing right now is I am actually hilling one whole line in the garden. What you don't see is that I will be doing a second one. And I am hilling because I want to plant my tomatoes deep, and our garden just is not deep enough to allow me to plant them as deep as I'd like. So this just gives me a little more depth to plant the tomatoes the way I would like to. My youngest daughter was making sure that she could find all the worms and rescue them by taking them from where we were digging and taking them over to the raised beds. She wanted to make sure that they were all safe and didn't get hurt. We're laying down a porous weed barrier. This lets the water go through but not the weeds come up, and it is a lifesaver for keeping the rows weeded between them. Here's some of the worms that we found. Here's our trellising system that we're laying down so that we know where the tomatoes are going to go. This wire is what you would normally put under cement when you're building a floor. It's fairly inexpensive at most hardware stores. And then we're just pounding in the T-posts with the proper spacing that we want between them. You can see we have 3 trellisings that we're going to be using in this particular setup. The next step is just simply fixing the trellising system to the T-posts that we put in. We use zip ties in this case. We usually just double them around, the zip ties from the dollar store, and this is very quick, it's very convenient. Today in the garden, we're just going to do some direct sowing of some easy things, and the one that I'm choosing to do today is we're going to do lettuce. It's a super easy one to direct sow. You literally just need to scratch your surface here. All right, lettuce seeds are very, very small. So it'll tell you on the package to sow them so many spacing apart. It's really, really hard to do. The easiest thing to do is grab a pinch and slowly let the pinch out between your fingers
and then that's it. And then you just shuffle the soil around on top of them. And that's it. Your lettuce is sowed. Whew, it's another hot one out here today. All right, so we have planted a few things in the garden. We've got the trellising up. I still have to put the tomatoes in. We've put the lettuce in now, and some broccoli and some celery. I've done a row here of corn and beans, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do this row with you. And then we'll just take you through the steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 rows. And the reason why we put 3 rows together tight is because in order for corn to pollinate, so in order for you to get kernels on your corn, they have to all pollinate together. And in order to do that, they need to be close together. So I put in this area right here, there'll be 3 rows all put together tight, so when the wind blows, they'll be able to cross-pollinate. Then on the end of the rows here, I do beans, bush beans, on each end. Because over here in the garden where I haven't got to yet, that is where we will be putting a bean trellis with the climbing beans. In the garden here with corn, I put the bush beans. And the reason for that is corn is a nitrogen stealer, but beans are a nitrogen fixer. So you kind of mix the 2 of them together that way. All right, let's get started.
I'm just going to use my hoe here, and I'm very quickly making 3 rows. And they're very, very close together as we discussed previously.
Like I said, on the ends here, I always plant a bush bean. So these 3 rows here, this is what beans look like. Beans are pretty easy. Your spacing, I usually do about a hand width apart, and we put that in, and then we can very easily go ahead and we can go ahead and cover these. Okay, so we can just go ahead and finish putting these guys in, and then to cover them, it's actually pretty easy. You can see we have some beans here, and we just take the soil and we just gently put it over top. And again, this row, just gently cover them. And this row, cover them up. There we go, beans planted. So next up, we're gonna put the corn in, and there are a few varieties that do fairly well for us in the home garden. One of the ones that we really liked was early Canadian and Bootylicious. They were both really good, tasty ones that were able to come fully into fruition before the end of the season. So we're just gonna go ahead and put those in the garden. Spacing for corn is much that of a bean. I usually aim for about a hand width between them. So you can see here, if I put my hand there, and that's about what I aim for.
Now, let's just finish planting. As you can see, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's very, very quick, and I can be done a row in very, very short order.
We're going to cover the corn the same way we covered the beans. One thing I like to do is grab your little hand, and you're just going to do this. It just covers them enough. And you just do that all the way down the rows.
All right, let's get these guys covered up so we can eat some corn later in the season. Very, very easy to do. It's kind of satisfying to watch all those seeds disappear.
We have planted corn and bush beans, and then I have also planted in here some scallopini, some butternut squash, and some pumpkin. We're gonna pop over here now, and we're going to do potatoes. There's lots of different ways to do them. This is just the way we do it. The first thing that we're gonna do is that we're going to dig a trench, and then once the trench is dug, we will put the potatoes in there, and then we will put a big hill on top of those potatoes.
This is called trenching, and I'm just doing the first initial trench. There'll be a second one done in a little bit.
We have our seed potatoes here, And we are gonna prep them for the garden space. Now, you'll see these are called eyes. And what lots of people will do is cut these. So there's an eye here and an eye here. And they'll cut them and they'll put them out to cure. So they'll leave them in the sun for 24 or so hours. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. The 1 year that I did that, I didn't have very good luck with my potatoes. I cut and toss them in. So just make sure there's an eye. I'm gonna cut between the eyes. So there's a couple eyes on that one, and some eyes on that one, and into the trench they go.
You can see here as I am cutting potatoes and the eyes, if you look in the top part of the video, you can see Thomas there doing the second trenching, and it is a lot more physically demanding than the first part, so that's why I said he can do that and I'm gonna cut the eyes on all of the potatoes. I then took over the easy part and let him rest while I covered the potatoes with all of the soil, making a heaping mound. This will ensure that we get the most amount of potatoes that we can in our trenching. We'll also mulch this a little later on.
I had mentioned in a previous video that the way we do the tomatoes in the in-ground garden is slightly different than the way that we do it in the raised beds. And that's simply because I can't get down in the dirt as far. Now, I have made a bit of a mound here, so I can go down a little bit, but not quite as far. So we're gonna do very similar, where we're gonna dig our hole, but instead of just a hole, we're gonna dig a slight bit of a trench. As far down as we can go. And then, just like we did, we're gonna put our egg in the hole. Give it a little crack. And do the same thing here that we did with the ones in the raised beds. We are going to take off all of the bottom parts of the tomato. I know it hurts, but it's for the better of the tomato. Naked tomato now. We're going to down in the hole at a little bit of an angle. Be very careful during this step because you could snap your stalk. I'm gonna cover it in a little bit. I'm gonna give it back its support. And then we're gonna mound this up as high as we can as we go. And I will probably need to put some extra support on this little guy. Pat it down. We're gonna tie it off here, and this guy is pretty close to already reaching the bottom of our trellis. Why do we put these in a trench like this? Have a quick look here. Do you see all these little nubbies along here? All of those nubbies will turn into roots, which means then you have a much stronger root system. So even though you're gonna put it in the ground like this, you're gonna have this part above the ground. This whole section down here is gonna grow roots, which means more water uptake, more nutrients uptake, and a much stronger, healthier plant. Bewitching hour has come again. The mosquitoes are atrocious, but we have the garden in for today. I still have not managed to finish the bean trellis, so that'll be tomorrow's job. But I'll give you a quick look at what we've done. This first whole row is all cherry tomatoes, and then we have a mix of tomatoes in this row. A lot of the tomatoes in here were ones that got damaged or injured or whatever, and I know that I can handle having them. They're just not the maybe best tomatoes right now. In this row we have lettuce, and we have some broccoli, and we have some more lettuce, and then we have some celery at the end. We have beans, bush beans and corn in this row, and bush beans and corn in this row. We have some squash and pumpkins in here. Then we have potatoes in this mound. And then tomorrow I'll finish the bean trellis here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn the sprinkler on and give everybody a good drink for tonight, and then tomorrow we'll tackle the bean trellis. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Till next time, see ya, bye.